Although I will say we held him to fewer points than the last time we played him. uh, Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 59-21 win over UMass. We talk about our experiences on Saturday and what stood out to us during the game. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Finally, if you need help with your website or your online presence, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. All right, JP. Just as we expected.
Pretty much just as we expected, but not quite.
Definitely not the defensive start we expected. Um,
I
yeah,
don't know if there was manufactured adversity in the run up to a playoff run, but Kirby and his buddies are going to have plenty of film to go over on things to not do again.
yeah. I had like all the conspiracy theories during the game, and now I'm like trying to look back through my texts because I was sending them to my dad. Uh, One of them basically just didn't come through. In the end, was we were trying to keep them closer to keep Carson Beck in the game longer, so he could set the single game touchdown passing record, um, which he didn't do. So I guess that kind of takes that out. But that was my big conspiracy theory. I think I had another
Yeah,
one, but I can't remember what it was.
I don't know, man. I think that he played a lot longer than we needed him to, or that we wanted him to, because you know,
Yeah, yeah,
he took that hit at the end. And I think at that point they were like, and he was, slow to get up or whatever, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pull you.
yeah, yeah. Seriously, yeah. I know that was like all our questions last week. Were like, which backups do you want to see, and like, well, all that kind of stuff. And
We saw
eventually we
some
got
of
to see
them,
most
but
of them. Yeah, I was say we got to see most of them eventually, but definitely thought it was going to be. Definitely thought it was going to be earlier. I feel like it was probably just a, I don't know, man. Like you're playing UMass in November. Um, and hey, full disclosure, like when we did the preview, I was all like, oh, their quarterback played at Georgia Tech, and I don't know how to say his name, and like, turns out he was hurt. He didn't even play. So oops. So I don't know. I guess wasn't even as focused on this end either.
yeah, they definitely went with a dual. They went with a dual quarterback situation,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah,
was which was interesting
which
because
foreshadowing next game.
yeah, yeah, I was
Watch out
about to
for that.
say. I was about to say the whole backup quarterback thing is always been a an Achilles heel for this Georgia team. It's like
Yeah.
we have the inability to pivot on the fly. Like we can make adjustments at halftime, but then if something changes, like we're on the fly, we're not able to adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a ton to say about the game. We can talk about it a little bit more, but I wanted to get like you were boots on the ground in Athens. I don't know. Maybe a rundown of your day.
Yeah, well, my day didn't start perfect. I had a classic. I was texting my friends that were, I had a buddy that was going to the game. Uh, Frip Dog was kind enough to allow us to use his seats, which was amazing. He made three families happy, so big shout out to your family, sir. And you were able to help me secure some parking at the Tate deck, which was very fancy. Although I did.
Shout out Kelly and Jason. They made that happen.
Thank you, Kelly and Jason. Appreciate it. That was awesome. Um, so I was roughly an hour behind schedule. So
Mm,
classic like Bobo start to the day. It was a slow start to the day.
okay.
Um, so so I got into Athens about an hour later than I wanted to, and I was racing time because I knew that I was going to be up against the clock on getting there before dog walk,
Mm,
which number one I was trying to get there for to be there with some my buddy that stayed in he actually got a hotel room and stayed, which was super smart, but also super expensive. But um anyway, he ended up not being able to go to the dog walk anyway because he was in line to do a signing for Trayvon Walker
mm,
at the library, which I thought was kind of cool.
yeah.
But then yeah, so I was trying to get there before because I knew that they were gonna shut down traffic, and I finally turned when I turned on the Lumpkin, I was like, oh man, I made it. Like the buses aren't there. Like I got a straight shot to Tate, but then they had shut down the parking. So like I couldn't pull into the parking deck. So I had to wait like 20 minutes for a dog
Mm,
walk to kind of go, which was
gotcha.
fine. I just kind of found a spot to peel off at, and I wanted to sample a bourbon that I brought, just to make sure that it was good enough for what I was intending for later, which I'll get to in a second. And I sat there, had a bourbon, and listened to the radio, um, listened to the kind of the pregame stuff, and yeah, so was able to pull in Tate, and then head over to the Hug Dogs tailgate over there, the
Yeah.
Tate Gate, and from there the good times rolled, shall we say. Got a chance to meet up with Boss Dog. Shout out, Boss Dog. It was nice to meet. It was nice to meet you.
Nice.
He had messaged me and said that he really wanted to meet up. So he actually won. He was the winner of the tickets that that
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
B Rad was giving away. Him and Kirby. So I guess I lost out to him, and the consolation prize was that we got to meet up in person. So
Nice.
it was nice to meet him and his friend, whose name escapes me right now, but it sounded like that they don't go to the games very often. So I was happy to lose to such a good dog fan. Um, and yeah, so that was great. And then I got to meet Gary and Paula, better known on their Twitter handles as Valkyrie Dog and Natty. But yeah, we I got to meet them. They came into town, and we hung out at the tailgate. Just had a good old time, man. It was fun. And then my brother-in-law and nephew, shout out to Caleb and Monroe. They are new listeners to the podcast, and I believe that we've sparked a newfound interest in the tailgate culture with young Monroe.
Nice.
Um, he got to ring the victory bell or the chapel bell. He got to ring the chapel bell, and you know, all that stuff. I got to introduce them to some things that they had not experienced previously. So, it was a generational situation. And my neighbor who came, James, shout out to James, Bryson, and Matthew. Um, they they had been to games and they had been to a game before, but Bryson and Matthew had not been to one, and so they got to experience the full Athens thing from dusk to dawn kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it was good. Seats were great. It was a Chamber of Commerce day, as we messaged out to everyone. I don't know that the weather could have been any more perfect. I brought a jacket just in case because the swirling winds were a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never put the jacket on. Was kind of a waste. I was kind of bummed that I wasted my hand space on that. But otherwise, you know, it was it was awesome. Great weather, perfect day, and just an overall great atmosphere. It's always good to get into the classic city and have a good time.
Yeah.
And then the good times rolled into the evening. It was Hug Dog's birthday weekend. I believe Dana referred to it as Huggy Palooza.
Nice.
But yeah, everybody went over to Hug Dog's house. Got to meet up with Dwight and Scott, Kelsey, all the crew was over there.
Yeah.
Matthew Key, and I got to meet Maze, who is a good friend of theirs, and they always tailgate together. Joel and his son were there. Hush Puppy, shout out F3 crew was there. Man, it was just a great atmosphere. I was finally there for one of the fireball shots. So I got Mr. Fireball. We got a birthday cheers to Mr. Fireball, and I sent him a video with it kind of dubbed up to his music. So it was fun.
Nice. That's awesome. I know. I
And then
know.
and then we proceeded to watch at Hug Dog's house. We proceeded to watch as when I got there, we were looking around. I was like, yeah, this is the scenarios that we're looking for if we don't want to make the SEC championship. And then proceeded to watch as all of the dominoes fell.
Yeah, it was like all throughout the day. I know, like on my end, I actually right at kickoff, I got a text from my buddy Brad that he and Adam had found you on their way into the game. Because I don't think you had met. them before? I can't remember. I don't know. Maybe you had, but those are old.
I
They're
don't
old.
think that I met them. Yeah, I ran into them. I look like a celebrity, minor celebrity, a D list or F list, whatever you call it,
Uh,
celebrity, because
dude, it's
they
I think it's
shouted out
the G list for Georgia.
the
That's
G
what
list.
I
Oh
heard
yeah,
that referred to that Bobby Wilson is a G list celebrity. I heard that once and found it to be hilarious. So I like that.
that's perfect. Yeah. So they shouted out. I think it was the hat, which is part of the reason we wear our gear so that people can recognize it. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but, but yeah, so they saw me and I got to stop and meet them. We took a picture just to prove that we would run into each other. I said, "You got to send that to Jim."
yeah, yeah. I got it
Um,
right away. I was dying. That was awesome. That was awesome.
that's great. Yeah, it was fun, man. It was a good trip. I gave the Monroe and Caleb a little walking tour of uh, you know, our logistics on getting into the stadium and all that kind of stuff. Showed
Mm,
them the Reed Plaza and the tailgate situation over there. Because he was asking like, "What are all these tents for?" I was like, "Let me
mm,
explain,
yeah,
youngster."
nice. Uh,
Then we strolled through North Campus after the game and walked up to, I had a senior moment, and I mean the senile senior moment.
mhm,
Um, the my 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 nephew and his dad are gluten free. Caleb and Monroe, they're gluten free. They actually have the celiac situation.
mm,
They're allergic, but anyway, the we were going to go to the taco stand, which used to be right on Broad Street, but apparently is not anymore.
gotcha.
Um, so that was a faux pas on my part. Didn't look at the map, but we ended up going to my favorite spot, which I knew that we'd be able to find something there that they could eat. We went to South Kitchen Bar.
Mm, yeah.
Man, that place is phenomenal. I've been to eat there multiple times over the years, and it's just a solid spot. We ended up leaving. I didn't get to see the fourth all of the fourth quarter because we decided to. I was like, if we want to go out and eat downtown, we need to leave because we didn't have a reservation or anything. So we tried to get there early. And we did. We walked in perfect timing because pretty much as soon as we sat, we were able to sit right down and
Mm,
start ordering and stuff. But then maybe 10 minutes after we sat down, the line was out the door.
gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I've been in there. Um, I haven't like sat down and eaten there, so I still need to work that out at some point.
Dude, if you do, like, I mean, pretty much everything they have on the menu is delicious. I really enjoy the burger, super basic.
Mm,
But the duck fat tater tots. I always say that if you see tater tots on the menu, order them. The duck fat tater tots are amazing. The Brussels sprouts are like phenomenal, especially if you like Brussels sprouts, which I do.
mm,
Um, and yeah, the burger is fantastic. Um, yeah, everything they have there is good.
nice.
Cocktails are good, all that kind of stuff. So it's a solid spot.
Well, I'm glad you had. It sounds like you had a fantastic day. That's awesome. I'm glad that worked out and was able to bring that crew too. So that's pretty sweet.
It was a good time. Like I said, I think you know, having the FaceTime and one-on-one time over at Hug Dog's house was
Yeah,
was awesome.
yeah,
Um,
that's
Got
cool.
to smoke a cigar with Scott Rodeo, shout out Rodeo. Um, and yeah, that was cool. It
Sweet.
was a good experience overall.
I also wanted so something I had intended to talk about on the preview episode and completely slipped my mind, but you were texting me about this and I was like, oh man, like I knew that and forgot to say it. That Saturday was senior day, which I think is a good thing to get that out of the way. That's why I wanted to talk about it and been blanked. Um, I feel like that sometimes kind of subdues things and don't really want that happening on Black Friday against Tech. So I know they had senior day as the game was getting going, right?
Agree. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It was a good to get that out of the way. I think that does touch on the overall game atmosphere situation.
Hmm.
Which I don't know if we want to get into that now, but yeah, I appreciate that they went ahead and got that out of the way so that we didn't have to mess around with it. The players don't have to worry about being distracted, about being with their family and all that kind of jazz, and we can just focus on beating the nerds.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
But yeah, the overall game atmosphere, though, I will say that the progress that we've made on that front over the recent weeks, with the fireworks and all that kind of stuff was great. I was vibing with the music for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of opportunities, like, my wife likes to, when she breaks down different things, she's like, do better, do again, do different
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so the do again, the music is great. Do different. I would say that night games are different than day games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need to have a mode of operation for treating the two differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because it felt like that they were trying to force this to have a night game vibe,
Got it.
which I think has a place, but not in this particular instance. Um, like I said, I think the daytime situation should be a little different. The other thing that I would say, um, like we need to do better, for sure, is I, it continues to be a topic.
Mm-hmm.
It continues to be a topic that vexes me. I don't understand what the plan is with the band. It almost feels like that the in-game atmosphere is disjointed from the plan for the band.
Mm-hmm.
So I often found myself wondering, number one, where is the band at? Why aren't they playing? And number two, there were other instances on, is the band playing over the music that's being, played on the loudspeaker?
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't hear either one of them in that point.
Gotcha.
Um, then the other thing that I would say is that there were multiple times when the band was like the music would end and the band would try to play and they would basically it was kind of like listening to a podcast on super speed, where they would play their song in super fast mode, like it was on
Mm.
like it was
Just had to
double
get it
speed.
in. You had to get it
Yeah,
in.
had to
Yeah.
get it in, get it in time, and then stop. Like, and it felt
Cool.
rushed. So overall, I think that the coordination between the music experience and the band experience definitely has, much like the defense. And we can talk about the game overall, but much like the defense, I think that our in-game atmosphere still has some things to work on.
Got it. Yeah. Better never rests. Uh,
Better never rests.
always room for improvement. Okay. No, that's good. That's good. I'll watch out for that on next game. Okay.
Shouldn't be a
So
problem, I feel like, in this next game, but we'll
right.
we'll we'll see.
Yeah. Um. Okay. So yeah, the game itself. Um. I mean, hey, fast start for the offense. Can't
The
complain
offense
about
looked
that.
great, man.
Can't complain about that. Came out what touchdown every time we touched the ball in the first half. Four straight drives, if I'm remembering correctly. All touchdown passes by one Carson Beck. Uh, yeah, like I don't have a whole lot of to say about that. Looked good.
Yeah, offense looked fantastic. This was a game that should have been, name your score when I feel like the offense did its part. We still had some drops. Um,
Yeah.
that was still an issue. I think that if you were a Georgia fan, the pass to Dominic Lovett in the back of the end zone is probably a play, and Arian Smith later on, when he scored from 34 yards. I feel like those two plays could be plays that we, rewind and look to as, like, depending on how the season goes. Like those are things that we've been looking for. Like, we've had big play drops, we've had big plays that haven't worked out. They couldn't connect. I mean, you saw, even Gunnar Stockton was not immune to that, later in the game when he was able to get in. We
Mm,
finally got to see, Jaden Riddell, which is a person that I had on preseason to look out for because I've been hearing so much about him, and the Field Street Forum guys, they've been very high on him as well. Uh, I'm I think that we saw why. I think we should be seeing him more because he, as a giant tight end, large human, beat a defensive back that's very fast off the line and was able to gap him into open space, and we still missed him.
mm, yeah.
So
Yeah.
even our backup that everybody's been calling for, oh, bench Carson, like even our backup struggled to hit that wide open pass. But
Yeah.
like I said, I think that if you're looking for some super positive stuff, Payday continues to be one of the most underappreciated weapons of this offense. Dude nailed a 53-yard field goal like it was a ho-hum extra point.
Yeah,
Um, I think that by the time he ends his career here, he's probably going to be in line for one of the top awards. One of those some of those top record holders. Um, Not sure where he's pacing at, but it feels like that he's just automatic every time.
yeah,
But like I said, I think the pass plays to Dominic Lovett and Arian Smith in particular are plays that I am super, super excited about for my confidence boost in Carson Beck's ability to trust his receivers.
yeah. I agree with that. And I would say we got our first 100-yard rusher of the season.
Yep, I was just
Nate
about to hit on
Nate Frazier
that.
going over 100 yards. I thought he looked good, and we saw we saw the young pups get in there. We saw Peanut. Uh,
hmm
we continued to see Bowens, and he looked pretty good too. I thought so. Um, again, like I said, no real complaints. I guess the only complaint I would say, and then you can hit on Frazier. It was like little things. Like there was the one I would say Beck. He didn't have any interceptions. He had one like pick worthy throw, but I'm not sure that was his fault. Some he and Dom weren't on the same page. We're like Blaylock or Lovett went Dom Blaylock. Wow, I just went backwards. Lovett broke right and Carson threw left. Like it was like inside outside kind of thing. So not on the same page. Probably should have been picked, but thankfully the UMass defender dropped it. But yeah, the
There were
ground game looked good.
there were a couple of plays beyond just that one that I thought were where was the play by? Let me go back to the play by play because there was a series where we ended up kicking a field goal, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, okay. So UGA gets down. We're through a series of pass plays, chunk plays. We hit Arian Smith for 27 yards. We hit Dwight Peanut for 15 yards, which was great to see Peanut getting into the passing game. That's something that, again, if you're looking for positives, things that you have been wanting to see.
yeah,
More running backs other than ETN getting involved in the passing game is a really good thing. So seeing Peanut in there early, making an impact was great. But so we got to 1st and 10 on their 35 yards, so just outside the red zone, and we proceeded to throw three straight incomplete passes, and that's when Peyton had to come in and kick the 53-yard field goal.
okay,
Um, those three passes, I believe that there was a timeout that was also involved in one of those things. I could be wrong, but um, those three passes were all just awful. Like I think that Carson would want those passes back. Like one went off the hands of Lovett. I can't remember, but I just remember when I was reviewing the game on Sunday when I was trying to watch it afterwards. I was like, what happened there? Like, I mean, it was just three bad plays.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember I'm not sure if this was the same drive or not, but it was like we had scored every time and then we get the ball to start the second half and that was our first drive where we
Yeah,
didn't score or a touchdown at least.
right. And it
Yeah.
was it was 28-14 at that point. And you're like, let's put a touchdown on the board
Yeah.
and really like put an exclamation point on this game and create some separation.
Right. Right. I
Which they
guess
kind of did, but then the issue was that the very next series.
mm,
So we had all those problems on offense, right? Well, then those problems manifested themselves on the very next series. The very next series we kicked off, and that was where they hit that 75-yard touchdown, which was I would classify that as a 1% issue.
mhm.
So 99% of the time, I feel like we either intercept or that pass is incomplete. But on this particular rep, it was complete, and our guys kind of gave up on the play, and he was able to run it for a touchdown. Um, that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that was definitely a frustrating play because you're like, oh my gosh, you could feel the air come out of the stadium on that play.
I'm trying to remember what you texted me something like what is going on? Like something like when that play happened.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, what is
Uh,
happening? Because when he threw that ball, I said, "Oh my God, Dan Jackson's going to intercept this." And for
mm,
whatever reason, like Dan and I can't remember who was defending the pass. I want to say it was Seven.
I think
Um,
that's right. Harris.
I want to say I want to say it was 7. Yeah. But you know, I don't know if the ball got lost or what. I feel like it was maybe in the sun when they started, like they were on the left hash and he threw it across the field and maybe the ball went from sunlight to shade because the shade was it was like two different environments. If you were in the shade, you were freezing cold, and if you were in the sun, it was fine. That
Yeah.
was the feedback that I got from folks that were on the ground. That it was cold over there. But anyway, the pass came from one side of the field to the other, and like I said, 99% of the time that's either batted down, deflected, or we straight up just come down with it.
I found your text.
Um,
You said you said we missed a sack. He threw it into double coverage. I'm at a loss. That's
yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly what it was. We should have sacked him on that play, which frankly
Yeah.
was a theme all game long. Like we got pressure, but
Yeah.
he would escape on he we would get people into the backfield and they would figure out how to get something done. Or, we don't wrap up like on the fourth, I think it was 3rd and 5, or was it 4th down? I don't know. There was a play where Jalen Walker uh or Michael Williams was into the backfield and he got his arms wrapped around him, but
Oh yeah.
then one of our guys, got blocked into him, so he lost his leverage on his arm, so he had to let go, and he squeaked out and got a first down, and that was like you could see the frustration in his face afterwards when he was just like looking down and like he knew the magnitude of what just happened.
Yeah. I feel like frustration is basically just the way to describe what was going on with the defense. Um,
Yeah, like
because it was like they would
nothing
get
could go
there.
right.
Yeah, it was like they would get there. It was like they would start off good. Well, not every play, but it was like even when we got into the backfield, whether it was they were throwing, passing, QB run, or a handoff. Like how many times did we just blow the play off, but then miss the tackle, and then the guy would just go for like 10, 15 yards. So it felt more of like of a focus tackling type thing than anything else. I don't know. And I
Right.
think that's kind of what Kirby said. Like Kirby said it was because I think in the post game someone asked him if it was just the tackling. He's like, well, it was more than that. And he chalked it up to he was like, I hate to say it, but not we weren't ready to play today. Which I mean that's what you worry about in games like this, right? That they're not going
Yeah,
to take
for
it
sure.
seriously and think we can show up and beat them. And frankly, I guess that proved out to be true. Thankfully the offense showed up, and I will say the backups showed up. Like when the backups came in, like they like shut them down. And I don't think UMass had gone to their backups. I don't know that they ever did that. But when our reserves got in, they were hungry and wanting to show, prove that they deserved to be on the field. And I actually thought they played really well. My joke was we should have let them play earlier.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those guys to come in and be hungry and be ready. Next man up mentality. So,
Yeah.
when you finally get into the game, you want to make an impact. And dude, the future is bright. I think that something that we all need to just, I think we talked about this earlier in the season, but there is just a lot of youth. There's
Hmm.
so much youth on this team right now that the fact that we're operating at this level is still pretty awesome. Like we've got true freshman running back, we've got true freshman, safety, we've got true freshmen all over the field that are playing. We've got sophomores that are making big impacts. We've got, underclassmen that are just, unexpectedly coming into their own right now, which are some of it's due to injury, some of it's due to performance issues from guys that should be playing better. Um, but the future is definitely bright, dude. Chris Cole is going to be an absolute monster for us, and I
Yeah.
think that he probably would be playing a lot more if we didn't have other players that were ahead of him.
Yeah. Scoop and score was nice.
He's always around the ball. The joke is that he's got a nose for the ball, like that old coachism or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, he's shown 2 weeks in a row that he can be right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
I found the series, and I think that this is what kept the lifeblood going. It was that 4th down. So there was a series after we had scored a touchdown to make it 21-7, and we proceeded to, they got a few first downs, but then we got them they got into our territory, but they were well outside of the field goal range, and we got them into 4th and 5, and Harrison was able, that was the fourth down where he was able to escape the pocket and ran for 10 yards for a first down, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that, and that put it 21-14. And I think that that was the spark that they needed to kind of try to hold on and
Yeah.
made things, tough for us. And that's where I think that Kirby had a come to Jesus moment with the guys, and was like, we need to nut up, guys, because we're getting run out of the stadium. I mean, they ran the ball down our throats.
I mean, I saw a stat. I think it's the most yards rushing against Georgia since we played at LSU in 2018. So that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, this team is
And
not used to getting run on like that.
no, and should not get run on like that by a team with the talent discrepancy. That should not happen. So
The only thing that I'll say that was maybe we didn't, give enough credence to, and I think we joked about it on the preview, but British Bulldog and I have been talking about the new manager bounce,
yeah.
and I think that that definitely was happening. There was definitely, I mean, that guy was, I don't know, he came to play.
Oh yeah.
Let's just say it that way. I remember that there was that one play that they had on the goal line where they had a tight end move in motion, and he ended up stopping and going under center and taking a direct snap for a
Yeah.
for a touchdown or first
Yeah.
down. I can't remember.
I think it was for a touchdown.
I think it was for a touchdown. Yeah. Um, Dude, when I saw that play, I was like, "Oh man, that looked nice." Like,
Yeah.
I hope that Bobo was taking notes on something like that, because that would be a wrinkle for a short yardage situation that no one would see coming,
Yeah.
because we would never run anything like that. But we do that motion all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was wild. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I feel like probably focus issue, etc., and should not have that issue for any of our for the rest of the season. I'll just put it that way. So, so let me ask you this, John. As you're leaving the stadium after Georgia has just defeated UMass in that fashion, although I will say we held them to fewer points than the last time we played them. uh, we can at least
Yeah,
go with that.
that's I think that's like the just what we expected. And I think I had mentioned that to my buddy James, who, you know, he was like, "What's going on?" Like, I was like, "Well, you know, I think that number one, this is a battle tested, SEC team, basically, because they've played SEC opponents all season long.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
played they
Seriously.
played more they played more ranked SEC opponents than Texas.
Yeah.
So they're battle tested against the good teams. So this isn't their first rodeo with a Georgia team that's elite. Um,
True.
so yeah, they figure out how to put points on the board. I think that the way that they were happening is just kind of like surprising,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree.
because it really should have been a lot less. Like, I think 14 points is probably fair. Um, Based on how they played. You could maybe you could I could see justifying, peeling a couple of touchdowns off the board. Like I said, that first touchdown score that they had in the second half, which UMass scored more touchdowns against us than Tennessee did in the second half. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, like I said, if you could pull that one touchdown pass, that 175-yard touchdown pass off the board, I think that everybody's feeling a lot different about this game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But then as you're leaving the game, you're walking out of the stadium. You've seen Georgia play UMass in that way. I'm sure the first thing that was running through your mind was, and now I'm going to go watch Georgia clinch a berth in the SEC championship game, right?
That was exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking that we would go and I would check out, a couple things. We got to the restaurant, and I sat down and said, "Oh my gosh, Florida is gonna do this, aren't they?"
Yeah, yeah.
And
Actually,
then
let's hit quickly, and then we can kind of pivot into the what I guess the related thing. So I was just going to relay it to Coach Showbill. So on the over unders, let's see. I went 6-2. You went 4-4. I slightly extended my lead. But then in the pick'em games, I went 3-2, and you went 4-1. So shout out Coach Show for sending us all that and tracking it. But I guess the other thing, what I wanted to point out is you picked Florida to beat Ole Miss. I did not, but you picked that. And then I, after much consternation, picked Oklahoma to beat Alabama. And the funny thing about that is, if you look at the picks that Coach sent us, the home team won in every single game. So
It's hard to win on the road in the SEC.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
exactly why I voted for those victories. Brett Venables, I feel like, was in a situation where he needed to spike the football on someone. Um, Dude, Billy Napier, I I'm kind of worried about Lagway moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like in the future. But dude, Lagway seems to be what they need.
They have exceeded what I thought they could do against the schedule they had. I'll say that.
Yeah. I
Um,
wonder if there are folks in the building in Gainesville that are second guessing why they didn't play him to start.
yeah, yeah. Also, like on the Ole Miss side, man, it's like I feel like Lane played a dangerous game when he openly admitted that they had planned their entire offseason and season around beating Georgia. When
Hmm.
you outwardly put that much stock into one game, I think it's hard to. It's the opposite of what Kirby's been saying, right? Like Kirby's like, we're not going to ride this roller coaster of emotional up and down. We're gonna. It is, the season is a season, and we're going to be even keel throughout it. I think Lane took an exact opposite approach, and it got them that far. It got them to where they're right there. But then they had this emotional. I mean, they had a week off after that too. So they beat Georgia at home, had this huge emotional high, have an off week, and then that happened to them again at Florida this week. So I don't know. I think that's a dangerous game when you put that much emphasis in one single regular season game.
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of compare it to, two different approaches. You have the approach where Harbaugh, after he got his absolute, you know, after he got absolutely rocked against Georgia in the Orange Bowl, I think that they said that they created a mantra around their entire season the next season in which they won the championship, which, would probably also extend to some cheating. Um, but basically they pulled out all the stops and had their team go through the mentality of, the Georgia team,
Yeah.
being dominant in the fourth quarter. And like that kind of approach works. But if you just like, all right, we're definitely gonna just beat these guys. I feel like that's giving me Mark Richt vibes, versus Florida, where like, we just basically focus on that one game.
Right. Right.
Um, but I mean, is anybody surprised? I mean, I kept thinking back to when we had Hunter on, and he was talking about it's feast or famine with Ole Miss and specifically Lane Kiffin. Um, Dude, you went out and bought a roster. You bought a team that can compete. You bought a team that beat the crap out of what I would say at this point, looking backwards, is just a hobbled Georgia,
hmm
but definitely we should have put up more of a fight either way. And then you went out and you were basically you were in the driver's seat of making the CFP, and then you completely laid an egg against an inferior opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that there was a lot of questions asked, and I saw some like videos afterwards, like some players like going after fans, like the Ole Miss players as they were leaving the stadium or whatever.
That was the guy that transferred from Florida.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Was that Princely? Is
Yeah.
that who it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think some Florida fans yelled in his general direction something to the effect of like, you should have stayed in Florida or something like that. And he did not appreciate that.
He did not appreciate that, but I'm sure he appreciates the bank account situation. So,
Right. Right. I'm sure he does. I,
um,
So like when that happened, I think I remember I sent out to the tech to I don't know, one of our myriad of tech threads, something to the effect of, "Oh man, like Ole Miss losing actually hurts our chance to go to the SEC championship," which in a way was true. And I may not have all the tiebreakers are confusing and is evident by all the conversation on Twitter late Saturday night. They're very confusing. But
super
I
confusing.
yeah, but the way it all has to deal with like this the whole like multiple team tiebreaker. Like it's a lot easier if it's head to head, like two teams tied. But you know, we entered the day with a chance for like Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, A&M or Texas, and Tennessee, like to all end 6-2, and so that's just like a chaos scenario. But when Ole Miss lost, like that removed them from that equation. And so then it was like, oh well, because initially I think Georgia only needed Alabama to lose. But then once Ole Miss also lost, Alabama losing wasn't sufficient. And then the whole A&M Auburn thing that added that in. But I don't know. What was your feeling? Because I had this actually Kelly who, like I said, she's where the Tate pass came through. She and I were texting Saturday night too. I was like, it's like what do you want to happen? Like, do we want to make the SEC championship? Do you want to miss it? Because I've seen a lot of complaints like, oh man, like now we have to go to Atlanta. And like we were, I think the thought was beat Georgia Tech, go 10-2, get a home playoff game, not have to deal with Atlanta. I think I've changed my stance. We always joked the third in the SEC was the best, but I don't know. I'm definitely seeing some, there's definitely a big upside of winning the SEC championship at this point. If you look at some of the potential brackets out there, like Georgia wins the SEC championship, you're number two, and you could have a much easier playoff path than not being one of those top four seeds.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's crazy to me that there's so much chaos still left on the table. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about that. I was trying to talk to some of the donor guys about hey, what is the football program communicated to everybody? And I mean, basically all they've done is send out, do you want to order these tickets and how much they cost and all that kind of stuff. But like nobody's talked about like the logistics and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I think that I think that it's just crazy to me that there's like you won't know if you're hosting a game until what the Sunday after the conference championships. And at
Yeah.
that point, you're asking an operations staff whether it's UGA or not. Like, if it's I keep thinking about the smaller schools, like a Boise State. You're
Mm,
asking a Boise State to, scramble the last minute to figure out how to execute a playoff game on what, 3 weeks notice?
yeah. Yeah. Sounds right.
Two
I
to
think December
two two
20th ish, I think is when those first games are.
Yeah, so like maybe 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that it's asking a lot for these smaller schools to execute. I don't think that the teams like Florida, I don't think the SEC's teams are going to have any issues. It would be like I mean, shoot, even like in Indiana, a team in a smaller team in a big conference that's not used to that kind of logistics and that kind of shall we say, invasion, for lack of a better term, depending
Mm,
on who they ended up drawing. So, like, Indiana is probably not going to be used to running a game of that magnitude with, say, like a Georgia or if an Alabama or someone like that were to come to town, bringing with it all of the things that would entail.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true.
So,
I will say like I kind of went back and forth, but at the end of the day, Lily and I stayed up watching those games, and I was actively cheering for Auburn. I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, like I want the SEC championship. Like whatever. Like let's just do it. And you know, thought tweeted out from the podcast. We were out of it and gone. I gave up. You did too. Miracle. Like, and that's basically what it. All that stuff. Like we said, Georgia was sitting there in the clubhouse, and needed people to fall back, and they did. Like all of it happened, in like dramatic fashion. Dramatic and like crazy surprising with Alabama to lose by that much to Oklahoma. And I mean, they got dominated in that game. And then the A&M Auburn just, I think it's like what Saban said, like that place is haunted. Uh,
yeah, dude, I'm telling you, man, yeah, yeah, if there's a big game on the line with implications, like, and it's in Jordan Hare, I would definitely take the Tigers, regardless of how weak they may be, or if they're especially, a cornered Tiger that's looking for something to be positive about.
yeah. Yeah.
And they clearly were because they stormed the field.
Dude, the field storming is, I will say, the field storming is out of control at this point. Like, come on, guys. Like, you had, what was the BYU Arizona State? They rushed before the game was over, and then they had the whole Hail Mary situation.
Dude, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That
Like,
was absolutely crazy because it just goes to show you, like, I think so. We were watching, I think the attention was on one of the other games or something, and and,
mhm.
and Dana was like, "Did you guys just see that?" We were like, "What?" She was like, "There was 1 second left,"
That's amazing.
and then we saw it, and like we were like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy!" Because he totally caught that ball. Like that thing could have gone anywhere, and it just goes to show you, if there's 1 second left, anything can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get that game they rushed early. Auburn, or no. Oklahoma didn't. They went on early and they had to clear everybody off so they could take a final knee. I don't know who does that, John. Who runs onto the field before a game's over? I know you've never done that, and we've never done that in Athens, but it'll never happen again, at least. But yeah, I don't know, man. Crazy night all around. But yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I feel like and I've just seen a whole lot of like I didn't want to be in that game. Georgia could get left out if we lose the SEC championship, all that kind of stuff. I don't agree with that, but also like I feel like the people that are saying that are the same ones that are like I don't know, a lot of tough talk in other areas of like we should do this, we should do that. I say go out there, compete, just go for a championship and a top four seed. I think that like I said, I don't know how high Georgia was really going to get as a non championship winner. Like you know through that you got to get what 5 to 8 to get a home game. I'm not sure how high we were going to be able to climb. So those games and those roads are a lot tougher. If we can get up to that number two seed, that would be huge. So
Yeah, I guess it's all going to depend. Do you have a where do we stand? Who's so we got Oregon at the top, right?
yeah, so you got like
They're
or,
undefeated, correct?
correct.
Okay,
Then you got one loss Ohio State, only lost to Oregon.
but they're going to have they have Michigan at the end,
Yeah, and then probably Oregon in the Big Ten championship game.
probably Oregon in the Big Ten, so they could end up having another
And
loss
only and so
or
that's the other thing, right? Like only one of those teams can be in the top four, right? Because you got to be a conference champion. Um,
Mhm.
and like you know, there's the whole like the whole coveted five seed thing. To me, I feel like the loser of the big. I am all this like you lose a conference championship game, you're dropping so much. I have a hard time believing that in a 12 team era. Like I know the whole like Georgia lost last year and got left out. That was in a 14 playoff. Also, Georgia was undefeated and went to one loss in a 14 playoff. We're talking about a 12 team playoff. Very different, and it's an extra data point. There's a big difference between 10-3 and 9-3. Also, I would say on the whole three loss side, all that kind of stuff. But I think one of those teams is number five, and then for your 3 and 4, you're going to have other conference champions. So two would be, I'm assuming two is going to be the SEC champion. So right now Texas is ranked third in the playoff rankings. So, but we don't know. Like you know, you got Texas versus A&M to see who goes there. So, and then you'll have your ACC champion probably at third or fourth, your Big 12 champion at third or fourth, or your group of five, like Boise State, still could end up being like the 4 seed. So,
right.
but I will say, I think like one of the biggest winners of all that chaos is Tennessee. I think
Yeah.
Tennessee is squarely back in the playoff picture now. So
I was telling everybody, I was like, we need these guys to like calm down a little bit because I'd prefer to have Tennessee sitting at home.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. If the chaos continues, like who knows what's going to happen?
I
And
mean,
we don't.
there's so many questions that are going to come up about this. Like, what do you do about, you know, a two-loss team that didn't go to the conference championship, and
Mm,
then a conference team that has two losses, like Georgia, that you know potentially loses the conference championship,
yeah,
and you know who gets in? Who gets in? The two-loss team that you know, like let's say Ole Miss or something like that. You know, they have two losses. You know, do you put an Ole Miss team that beat Georgia in? Like I
right.
don't know.
Yeah,
I just the scenarios for a three-loss SEC team getting into the CFP, in my opinion, are eroding quickly.
yeah, I would agree. Well, I would say a regular season 3 loss team, which that's the other thing. Like the craziest thing for me right now is Texas A&M, right? So they've got 2 conference losses. They've got 1 non-conference loss. So they've already got 3 losses. But beat Texas, like they still have a path to the playoff, right? Like if they win
Hmm.
out, they're in the playoff and they're a top 4 seed. Whereas if they lose this game to Texas, they're going to insert random bowl game because now we're talking 8-4, right? I mean, so they're between it's that is a wide range to have happening right there at the end of the season. And I know Josh, if you're listening, Josh is like, yes, that's why the 12 team playoff is so great. um, so I'm not sure that I agree, but there is a ton riding on the Texas versus Texas A&M, especially for A&M.
Yeah, talk about pressure.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be a pressure cooker. You know, we went from, didn't we go from like a week ago where we felt like that the Texas Oklahoma game or Texas A&M game like kind of didn't matter.
Mm. Yeah.
because the way that it had all the favorites ended up winning, then they both if A&M beat Texas, like they were in, and even if they lost to Texas, they were both in or something like
Yeah, it was
that.
going to be like there was a very high likelihood of getting like a Texas versus Texas A&M rematch in the SEC championship game. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So it wasn't going to matter for the conference at least. Yeah.
As John likes to say, that this is why they play the games.
Yeah. 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 All right. Well, I don't know that I have much else on that. It was a wild weekend. Uh
It was.
I know
It
as someone
was.
who enjoys chaos, I'm sure you enjoyed Saturday
There was a lot of chaos. It was hard to keep up, man. I found myself looking from one screen to the next. Like I was like, oh my gosh, did they win? Did they win? Like Penn State looked like that they were going to wet the bed too. Like
night.
even they
Yeah.
were within a whisker of going down,
Yeah.
which would have further solidified, other teams coming up. So, you know, I guess that you know, an age old adage of, you know, even from the BCS era, when you lose your game also tends to matter the most. So
Yeah.
I feel like that if you are a conference that is looking to schedule games, we probably would want to front load and not have so many conference games going into going into November. But maybe that's just me.
Mm.
Um, if you were trying to game the system, that would be how I would do it: is to stack the schedules as much as possible to front load so that you had time to recover. Because that seems to be what's happening right now. Is like some teams are getting penalized more than others because they just like where else do you go from here? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I know Jim, you added the caveat on my comment the other day, but even if Georgia loses in the SEC championship game, I still don't think that they're going to put us in the CFP. But I know that your mileage may vary greatly on how you feel about that. I just don't see a three-loss SEC team making this thing.
If Georgia beats Georgia Tech, Georgia is in the playoff. Period. That's my statement. I hope we don't find out. I hope we don't find out. I hope we beat Georgia Tech
We're not going to find out, Jim.
and we
Knock
win
on
the
your
SEC,
head.
and so it's not gonna matter. Yeah, I'm not gonna win. And it's not gonna matter. But I'm telling you, man, a 10-3 team is very different than a 9-3 team. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
All right. Well, I definitely personally am. I'm gonna turn the page mentally, and I'm not worried about the playoff at all anymore. That's going to come later. The SEC championship is going to come later. Uh, my focus is on the enemy. My focus is on Georgia Tech now.
We get an extra game. We have another night game coming up. Enjoy it, soak it up. It's the last home game ish, last home game ish of the season. And yeah, we've got more on the horizon. The good news is we've got more football to play.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Awesome. Well, it was great. Appreciate your family for, helping us get everybody to Athens. Like I said, three families were made happy in that scenario. And happy birthday, Hug Dog. We're going to run it back on Friday. And I'm looking forward to it.
Love it. Yeah, man.
Go dogs.
Go dogs.